Welcome in, everybody, to FandomNFL. I'm your QB1, Joe Pizzapia, and we've got an amazing show for you today. My special guest, the voice of the Jaguars down in Jacksonville, just coming in hot, and I do mean hot because he just came back from training camp, and he made some time with me, my old friend from SiriusXM Fantasy, from SiriusXM NFL Radio, the one, the only Mike Dempsey. Dempsey, I'm glad you got inside because I heard you tell me in the training camp it was about, 110 degrees and about 99% humidity.
It was a broiler out there. As you pointed out to me, you choose where you live. I get that. I would not choose to be out from 10 to noon right now these days, but unfortunately, that's when my show is on the air, and we followed live from Jaguar training camp right after practice. So, happy to – look, as far as complaints go, I got a great life, bro. I'm not complaining about a whole lot, but I occasionally get a little overheated, yes.
Yes, well, especially when you're hanging out with Bob Harris. And, of course, if you ever listen to the football diehards, like I have my whole life, and I was lucky enough, my first job in radio, everybody, was following Mike Dempsey and Bob Harris. Saturday nights, 10 p.m. I would come on, and those two guys used to have me on to blow a segment at the end of the show just so they didn't have to do anything. And then all of a sudden, we actually started to get along, and the rest is history. Now, I'm going to throw a picture at you, Dempsey, before we get into all the Jaguar stuff and all the NFL news of the day. You tell me, over under 8 years ago, this picture of you and me, my friend. Look,
wow.
I don't know. I feel like I've aged pretty good. You look pretty good.
You look the same. I don't know. I've got like a lot of sunscreen on my face, to go with the white shirt that you pointed out. So I look very ghostly right now, but I don't know, man. That's about as good as I look. So
over under 8 years. How long do you think this picture is of us?
Gosh, I'm gonna say over.
You're correct. Yeah. 11 years ago, I was looking.
Wow.
Oh, God.
Wow. That is.
How does that happen?
That was pre a lot of orthopedic surgery for your boy over here, man. So, yeah.
Oh, all right. So, what I love here on the new channel here is we like to break down all the fantasy stuff. We break down the wagering stuff. It's going to be all the betting content coming soon, too. But I always feel like it's really important to get to know what's going on the ground of these situations, talk to people who are inside, meeting with the players, meeting with people inside the organization, and just around stuff, because to me, that makes it a lot easier in order to get some information to inform our investments. And that's what it's all about here. Trying to make good investments as often as you possibly can when it comes to fantasy, when it comes to wagering, but also when it comes to your fandom too, to understand what's going on. And I want to start with Trevor Lawrence because there's a lot of buzz going on with him. I'm also going to give away our Zay Flowers jersey today. So stick around for that because, again, didn't think we'd get 1,000 subscribers quite so quickly. We got it within about a 6-day period. We're almost closing in on 2,000 right now, Dempsey, if you could believe it. And it's crazy what the people are doing here, making this channel blow up in just 2 weeks. But let's start with Trevor Lawrence because I was watching the gym this morning, people talking about him potentially being MVP. My buddy Andrew Erickson's made a case for that. Last year, Trevor Lawrence, 4,000 yards passing, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. This year, projections have him kind of around the same spot, a little less on the touchdowns, which is interesting. Now, you take Travis Etienne out of this backfield. I think that's going to make a big impact because now you're going to a little bit of an unknown factor there with Bashal Tutin and Chris Rodriguez. The flourish at the end of the season, Dems, was so good for Trevor Lawrence. A lot of those stats did come in one game, though, when people start to look at that. Oh, look what he did down the stretch. That game against the lowly Jets really did pad a lot of those stats. Bunch of touchdowns in that game, a tremendous amount of yards. Do you think we've seen now this emergence of the prospect we always thought we were going to see in Trevor Lawrence now in this Liam Cohen offense? Or was this just a really good finish where everything broke right for him at the end of the season in 2025?
Well, you can't know, right, until it plays out. But I do believe that the key is Liam Cohen in this whole thing. We talked about him a lot this morning on my show locally in Jacksonville. The guy is an excellent play caller. He's much more of a leader of men than we anticipated coming in. Like, he really has this team believing. And look, yes, there were a lot of touchdowns in that Jets game last year, but the Jags over the last 2 months of the season were averaging 31 points, best in the National Football League. It didn't all happen on one Sunday afternoon. I think the one area you've got to look for a little regression from Trevor Lawrence might be in the rushing touchdowns. He had 9, but in terms of projections for passing, career highs across the board because he's never had that like 4,400 yard passing season. And with the weapons he has, and, Jacoby Myers, Brian Thomas, Parker Washington, Travis Hunter, who looked spectacular today on the practice field, just those four guys, Brenton Strange, and whatever the backs are going to do in that offense, I would be very surprised if Trevor Lawrence does not set career highs in passing touchdowns and passing yards, provided he stays healthy. Now, the nice thing is his ADP is more around QB 8 or 9, and I think he's got top 5 upside, Joe. He's a guy you could definitely wait on. There are a few people in the industry that are trying to poach him in some of those drafts, but in your typical draft, he's going to be an afterthought in a lot of occasions. I was in a draft on July the 3rd, and this is an industry draft, and people like to play the game of chicken waiting on their quarterback, right?
They sure do, Dempsey.
They really
I just
do.
did 2 drafts at the Kings Classic this past weekend, and it was an absolute chicken show in every sense of the word. You're 100%
that's
right.
what happened, right? And so here I am in the 11th round. I'm at the 11-2, and Joe Burrow is on the board. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me here and the 11th round. So I said to myself, look, if I knew for a fact that Trevor Lawrence would make it back to the 12-11, I would pass on Burrow here, and I would take Lawrence. So I took Burrow. There was a big run on quarterbacks, and Trevor Lawrence still made it back to the 12-11. Wow. So I just think he's being overlooked. And there's so many guys, Joe, and I know we're going to get into the pass catchers here. It's going to be very difficult on a week-to-week basis to figure out where to put your investment, whether you're just playing the markets on you're playing some lines and on projections for these guys, or whether you're trying to set a lineup, particularly if you've got more than one of these players, like on a dynasty roster or even in redraft, because I think that will fluctuate. And I think the best way to do it, if you want the Jaguar passing game or a big chunk of it, is take Trevor Lawrence, wait until a couple of those receivers come off the board, or at least the first one. And if you get a good value on the second Jag receiver or the third, or even if you want to wait till the second to last round and throw a shot at Travis Hunter and have a little fun that way, I think they're all viable. But I want a lot of Trevor Lawrence because I think this passing game is going to be good, even though it's going to be difficult to tell who is the biggest beneficiary week to week.
From week 12 last year all the way to week 18, Trevor Lawrence finished as a QB1, and actually there was only 1 week where he did not, which was week 14 against Indianapolis. Also, the last 4 weeks, he was a top 5 quarterback in every single week in terms of fantasy points per game. So that's something to really keep in mind and moving forward. And I'm glad you brought up Travis Hunter, because I think that is the question that we all have. Whether you're a casual fantasy football player or you're somebody who is playing in the expert leagues, it's the idea that you are looking ahead here and saying, is he part of the offense? Is he part of the defense? Is he part of both? And I think that's what we're trying to delineate and understand. Now, from my perspective, and again, this is just the outsider situation here, when you make that kind of investment in draft capital in an asset that is Travis Hunter, the football player, if you're going to move all those picks in order to move up to make that selection, I think he's got to contribute on offense. Now, he has put some weight on year over year. We know last year, it seemed like he was starting to come on right as he got hurt last year and really starting to figure things out. And then the Parker Washington flourish happened. I want to talk about those other wide receivers, but first I want to talk about the asset that is Travis Hunter, because I think that is that thing that we're looking at in dynasty leagues, we're looking in redraft leagues, we're looking at some late picks. I saw in these expert leagues too, some of us are starting to take flyers on him just to see how much he integrates into this offense. Or are you of the mind, like my pal Jake Seeley, that says, don't buy the icing, buy the cake? Trevor Lawrence is the cake. You can depend on that every week. The icing, you just don't know what it's going to taste like week to week, potentially with some of these other guys. Where are you at with Travis Hunter, and where are the Jaguars at from what you're hearing so far in training camp?
Well, look, it depends on how much the icing costs, right? And we're not paying second-round draft capital to get Travis Hunter. You can get him in the last round of a lot of your drafts right now. So, he's one of those guys that would be on your team. And if you have a couple of injuries, you might move on if he gets off to a slow start. But I'll say this. I was out there for the first day of OTAs when he wasn't fully cleared to participate, yet he was still out there running routes. He was playing exclusively on offense at that time. He's doing a lot of virtual training. The Jags have a facility that's out of this world. Like you could put on a VR headset and play football practically in it. And he's gotten a lot of defensive back training there. I just think the feeling is he is such a natural cover corner that you could almost roll him out there on game day and go lock down that guy. But today he comes out, they go teal for offense, they go white for defense. He comes out in the teal jersey, makes a climb the ladder catch, showing off a 40-plus inch vertical. Like that makes you realize Yeah, this is the guy who won the Heisman, right? The guy who won the Bolitner
yeah.
Cup. He is a special athlete. If he had no designs on playing defense, I don't know what the ceiling would be. Travis Hunter would be the best wide receiver, I think, if he focused solely on that on this team. And I think they have a couple of really talented guys in the mix there. But so he goes in the teal 12 and he skies for a ball. Like 2 plays later, he's got a white jersey on. He's playing defense. He didn't do this until the very end of training camp last year. He'd alternate offense one day, defense one day. He is out there almost going play by play, Joe, already just coming back off the knee injury, just getting cleared for camp. And he's a special talent, but he is a little bit of icing. I could see them hitting him on a couple of shots down the field in the game, but you got to be careful. The Jags want to play more 12 and 13 personnel, right? It's a big wave, get more tight ends on the field, different matchup problems, not give the tell whether you're run pass. Well, every time you add a tight end, you're taking away a wide receiver. And so who are you taking away? I mean, if you're in 12 personnel, just with the 2 tight ends in a back, you're taking 2 of Hunter, BTJ, Parker Washington, and Jacoby Myers off the field. So there's going to be a lot of competition for snaps. And I think Travis Hunter is more fun in best ball than anything. Throw him on there as your 7th or 8th wide receiver, and he'll probably pop a couple of times. I love IDP dynasty leagues, and if he gets points for both, I think he's a phenomenal asset to have as young as he is. You're right. He put on good weight this offseason. His goal now is to get up to 23 miles per hour on those GPS systems. He's running in the mid 22s. I mean, the guy is a chiseled freak specimen that I've never seen get tired, Joe. That doesn't mean he's going to be a great fantasy receiver for you in 2026. Though.
Well, the trick is you can't score points if you're not on the field, right? And it's about how much volume you're getting to get the opportunity, at least for fantasy points. And that's where things get a little muddy here. I want to put in context Travis Hunter for a second if I can, because he's going somewhere. You see some of the ADP right now going on in drafts about wide receiver 60, the 170th player off the board. The names around there that I find intriguing: Jalen Coker, Omar Cooper. I'm not sure about Jawan Jennings. I'm more of a Jordan Addison guy at this stage because he's had 2 top 21 finishes already, and I think we just kind of go back into that once we get a real-life boy playing quarterback in Kyler Murray. Isaac Tesla is intriguing, but again, kind of lower on the totem pole. Would you make a case for Travis Hunter over Coker, Cooper, Jennings, Tesla, this group of guys that's kind of going around that area?
Tesla is interesting because he is 1 injury away from being very significant. Right?
I mean, he is another guy that had those flashes last year that I just got so excited about, and I went, man, I tried so hard.
Catches and 6 touchdowns last year, right?
Yeah, but it was when they were targeting him.
Right.
But also the what he was doing on the field to get open in those red zone opportunities. And that was very impressive that as a rookie, he was doing that. And as a rookie, Jared Goff had the confidence in him for those big moments. And that stuff speaks volumes. And in dynasty leagues, that was a cheap asset I was trying to acquire. And unfortunately, I just couldn't work in any deals. So Tesla, I'm with you. What about that other group? Would you?
Yeah, the other group, I would honestly, if I'm at that point, I'm presuming that I put together a decent wide receiver core, right? So if I'm in the 15th, 16th round of a 12-team draft, I imagine I've got at least 4 competent wide receivers, maybe 5. And the way I look at it, I'd rather take the shot on Hunter than the Cokers of the world, Omar Coopers of the world. A, the quarterback situation is better. And B, if it right now, the Jags feel like they need him more as a full-time defensive back with a partial role on offense. But what if that changes? What if Brian Thomas gets injured? What if Parker Washington gets injured? He can handle different aspects of the receiving game. He can be that short crossing pattern guy. He can go deep. He's got unbelievable ball skills. So I just think the upside, the narrow band to hit, very small. But if he hits that upside with an injury in front of him, with the quarterback that we talked about, that was top 5 in the MVP voting last year, I'd much rather have that than Bryce Young throwing me the football or some of these other situations, man. So it's a lottery ticket at that point anyway. I think his upside is bigger.
Yeah, it's a great conversation. I'm glad you shed some light on this Trevor Hunter situation too, because I think this is one where a lot of people were excited last year. It was very disappointing last year. I mentioned on yesterday's show, I literally made a trade for him, I think 2 days before he got hurt in the practice. And I was excited because I started to see it's starting to happen. It's starting to happen. He looks really good. He's really come from the offense. And then This is the nature of the beast. This is what we do. We play this game, and sometimes we're at the mercy of it, unfortunately. I'm going to talk more with Mike Dempsey in just a second about some more of these wide receiver investments on this team, how we're going to approach it in the context of ADP right now, which ones Dempsey thinks are good, which ones we want to stay away from. Before we do that, I promise you I'd give away something cool when we got to 1,000 subscribers. Didn't think we'd get there this quickly, but here it is, everybody. So congratulations to Fala Talks. Fala Talks, you are the winner. You won with the best comment here that I threw out here. So you are the winner of the Zay Flowers autographed jersey. So Fala Talks, hit me up on the Gmail at fantasyblackbook@gmail.com. That's easy to remember, fantasyblackbook@gmail.com. Send me your address. I already know you subscribed to the channel. I already know you commented. You did all right things. Fala bringing the heat here. So Fala, congratulations. You are the winner of the Zay Flowers jersey. If you don't claim it within a week, I'm going to give it to somebody else. So get on that. Again, Fantasy Blackbook, at Fantasy Blackbook right now at the Gmail, right? That's how you get it. And of course, the new giveaway was to get to 2,500 Fantasy Blackbook we're giving away right now. I'll give you a digital copy if you want to save a tree. If you want a real copy, I'll give you a real copy. Or you can just get your own right now at Amazon. Lots of giveaways, a lot of cool stuff going on. Also, we're going to have a new sponsor too coming up of the show coming up August 1st. So stick around for that. That's going to be very exciting. Mike Dempsey, let's talk about some of these wide receivers because that's the next question. Parker Washington, such a strong finish to the season, which was a little tenuous when they acquired Jakobi Meyers. Jakobi Meyers, very steady veteran, a guy that I think continuously was overlooked everywhere he was, kept putting up fantasy numbers, even with the Raiders in terrible situations, and it seemed like nobody cared year over year. You could draft him as a wide receiver 4, and he'd finish as a low end 2 most of the time. But let's start with Parker Washington here because this is the guy. Some people are calling it a breakout. Some people are stepping away. What are you doing when it comes to Parker Washington at the current context of where he's going in fantasy drafts? Are you buying in, or is it too muddy of a situation for what you saw last year from Parker Washington into 2026?
No, it's not too muddy for me. I mean, you pay wide receiver 3 prices on him, occasionally get him as your wide receiver 4, depending on how you're building. And, I kind of vacillated between Brian Thomas Jr. and Parker Washington at times. And I said, look, if you built your wide receiver room, guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? Heavy volume guys, high floor, high ceiling as well, but the floor is always there. I'll roll the dice on Brian Thomas because it's going to come, in one shot down the field, 150-yard pass for a touchdown. There's 12 fantasy points in a PPR, and it's hard to top that. But Parker Washington, if I had to pick a guy who's going to lead this team in receiving this year, it is Parker Washington. And, so maybe if I've got, instead of Amon-Ra St. Brown, I took running back and I go A.J. Brown, who I think is going to be very good, but a little more volatile week to week. I would prefer having Parker Washington there. We got to remember, he topped out at about 850 yards last year, but also he really didn't take off until the second half of the season. If you take him, I think from it's the last 9 games, whatever it is, week 8, week 10, whatever it was. You take him and average that out over a full season. He was on pace for 1,210 yards, roughly. Will he do that every week? No, but I'm telling you, people don't realize how good Parker Washington is. And watch his ADP jump, Joe, when they announce a contract extension with him, because they've been working on it for a while. And
I'm glad you brought that up because I always say follow the money, right? If you're trying to figure out the answer to some of these questions, it's about following the money. There's a lot to be made where people talked about, well, Brian Thomas's best work didn't come with Trevor Lawrence, and Parker Washington more fits the mold of what Trevor Lawrence has seen success with so far in the NFL, where he plays on the field, the sort of offense that Liam Cohn is running. So that's the difficult thing, because if you're looking right now at that average ADP out there, you're seeing Brian Thomas at wide receiver 31, you're seeing Parker Washington at wide receiver 40, then you're seeing Myers at 44, and then we already mentioned way down at the 60 range is where Travis Hunter is. So I get Travis Hunter as the lottery ticket. If there's injuries, maybe he plays a little bit more. But it does seem like the sweet spot, especially if there is an extension and they put money on it, is the Parker Washington investment, because it feels like if you're wrong, it's not going to kill you, because chances are you're going to back it up with, I don't know, Romeo Doubs or Rashid Shaheed or somebody else there as a wide receiver 4 that can still play for you if Parker Washington busts out. How close are they to a potential extension? Do you think that's going to get done?
I do. I wouldn't have been surprised if they announced it before camp today. Honestly, it's been a priority for the team. James Gladstone, the GM, talked about early in the offseason they had priority to get Trayvon Walker done. They got it done. Brenton Strange extended. They got him extended.
That one was interesting too.
Right. And I think both of those were pretty team friendly. I think because, again, Liam Cohen, I think in a short amount of time has created that atmosphere where people actually want to go to Jacksonville and stay in Jacksonville and be a part of what he is building. But they love Parker Washington. Liam Cohen raved about him after practice day. You see him out there, man. And the beautiful thing is he's a punt returner. And when he's got the ball in his hands, you can see that, they'll hit him for a 25-yard gain. And then all of a sudden, fire up the Benny Hill music and it's guys just trying to get a beat on it. He's built like a tank, right? He's 5'10". He's built like a brick. And, but he still had the fourth most contested catches in the National Football League last year. So you can high point the ball with him. You can hit him in the red zone. He doesn't have to come off the field because of his stature. Trevor Lawrence trusts him. I'm telling you, if you had been out there for the first day of OTAs, you would have wondered, are they ever going to throw a ball to anybody but number 11? I mean, that's the way it started. Now, that's OTAs. It's not this competitive environment, but I would not sleep on Parker Washington. And if the ADP you're citing, if I can get him at wide receiver 40, I will pass Brian Thomas every single time and take him at that price. In a lot of drafts I'm seeing, particularly best ball, I see them go almost consecutively. So in reality, I think the ADP in the leagues I've been in has been a little bit closer. But if I can get him as a wide receiver 4, I have no qualms whatsoever.
So week 16 through 19 into the playoffs, right? He averaged 22.3 PPR points. Over that span, he had a 28.9% target share too. That's the thing to me that really sticks out. I understand that's a different context now with Travis Hunter healthy. I understand that could change a little bit, but I think it's worth noting and worth understanding. Now, let's say he signs this extension, Dempsey, and the ADP ticks up. Is there a threshold where it's too expensive for you? Just out of curiosity, like, if it goes into It's difficult to say, but should he go into top 25 range? Is that where you're like, okay,
that's kind of where I was thinking as you were describing this.
Right. That's why
really thought of it
over Mike Evans, over Devontae Adams, over Christian
I'm
Watson.
not taking him over those guys.
Right.
I'm not
you can't do that. Right. I just want to put that into context.
Right. And if, there is a limit because then I'll switch and I'll say, all right, I've got my Parker Washington shares as a wide receiver 40 in terms of ADP. Now I'll switch around because if he's rising, probably some of the other Jaguar receivers are going to fall in reaction to that. And, look, Jacoby Myers still played a lot of snaps when he came over last year. And he is a guy that is going to be tough to take off the field because they like what he does in the all-around game. It doesn't get fantasy points, but he's a good blocker in the run game. Things like that. Trevor Lawrence trusts him. They credit Jacoby Myers coming over with really changing the entire tenor of that wide receiver room last year. I don't know, Joe, if hands are contagious. By the way, he had a bad drop today. But that aside, they really
it can't be worse than Marvin Harrison's footage from the last couple of
that's
days.
a guy.
We'll save that. We'll get to that because I want to get your take on that because I'm sure you've got feelings about it.
But yeah, let's not go crazy. Parker Washington, if there were one or two fewer receivers here, I mean, I could see drafting him as like wide receiver 18, something like that. But that's not the situation. So let's not go nuts.
I feel like he's potentially a poor man's Ladd McConkey this year. Like that's where he could get that kind of a volume potentially in that.
The other thing is too, if you play in a league where you get rewarded for special teams touchdowns, he had a couple, he had 3 last year. One got called back because of penalty. I play in a lot of leagues that give you yardage on top of that to help expand the wide receiver pool.
Great point.
Phenomenal in that kind of a system. And you could bump him up, I don't know, 6 spots easily because as of today, at least, still running as the number 1 punt returner. And there's a lot of talk, do you want a starting receiver to handle these duties? Well, they've got so many different ways to share the wealth. If he takes back a return 40 yards and he needs a blow, they got plenty of receivers that can fill in for him. So I'm hoping he holds down that number 1 punt return job as well.
All right. I want to get to the backfield here and talk about what's going on with the running backs because it's going to be a different tenor this year in 2026 with Travis Etienne gone. Before we do, I know everyone's been asking. I will pin it to this video as well because, yes, FandomNFL finally is on the Spotify. It's on the Amazon Music already. It should be on iTunes and Apple today and iHeartRadio also. So wherever you get your podcast, finally, you could just listen on the go wherever you want to the FandomNFL podcast, not just YouTube, but subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like this video. Again, somebody's going to win a fantasy football black book 2026. I'm going to give you when we get to 2,500 subs. We're closing in on that. I think we're about, like 700 away right now. Crazy how fast this is all going. So appreciate all of your support, everybody out there. And I want to keep bringing you interviews like this. I got a bunch of people lined up here where we're going to talk ball. We're going to dive deep here so we can make some better decisions. And I think Bashal Tutin is one of these guys where the explosiveness exists. He's a little bit small of a back, but again, that kind of goes hand in hand with the explosiveness a little bit. You saw some moments last year, but he was pretty suppressed because Travis just did the thing last year. Cashed in, did the thing. He was only 2 years removed from being an RB1. He was hurt in 2024. People just dismissed him in 2025. I did not. I had all the shares of him and James Cook. That was pretty much all my backfields everywhere because they were cheap and everybody else said, no, it can't possibly be good. To which I said, why? Why can't it possibly be good? And if you're going to give it to me cheap, I will look for it. But now there is question. They bring in Chris Rodriguez. I know there's other names in this backfield as well. But in your mind right now, that investment for Bashal Tutin is somewhere around RB25. He is basically the beginning of RB3, which I understand why. Do you think he is going to break out, or do you think this is a muddy backfield at the end of the day and Tutin doesn't see the goal line carries and doesn't see some of those carries we want so much in fantasy in those big spots?
Oh, if there's a back that's going to approach what Travis Etienne did last year, it will be Bashal Tutin. The question is, will he approach that, right? And I know you said, he's got the breakaway ability. He showed it in college. Last year's long run was 15 yards. Like Chris Rodriguez's long run was like 46 yards in, very few opportunities as well. Tutin left a good impression, 4 carries for 51. They should have kept feeding him against the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs, but alas, they didn't. He's got that 4.3 speed, which is legit. And here's the thing with Chris Rodriguez. Liam Cohen put this so perfectly today. He goes, you're not going to notice what Chris Rodriguez is going to bring to this team until we start playing tackle football. And I just thought that was such a great quote because Chris Rodriguez, Liam Cohen this offseason talked about the stink in the running game. And he wasn't saying that Travis Etienne was the stink. He was saying their inability to get the tough yards when they needed it and the other team knew it was coming just didn't exist in the second half of the season. They couldn't push people around. Chris Rodriguez is building a career on having it blocked for 2 yards and getting you 4. Is it sexy? No. But could that lead to a goal line role in Jacksonville? Absolutely. I think absolutely Tutin should go ahead of Rodriguez in drafts. But I do think getting Chris Rodriguez in the double-digit rounds is a wonderful either hedge on drafting Tutin or let somebody else take the risk with Tutin. Tutin's upside is immense, but you do have LaQuint Allen, who's probably going to be your third down back and cut into a lot of the pass-catching opportunities. That's where Travis Etienne scored 6 touchdowns. Keep in mind, Bashal Tutin scored 7 himself on like 83 carries and receptions combined. So there were 20 touchdowns between the top 2 backs. I could see that happening again, and maybe even a couple of more if that they take off Trevor Lawrence's plate. But who's going to be the 12 touchdown scorer? Who's going to be the 8 touchdown scorer? I think that's more of a question. Bashal Tutin should lead this team in rushing yards pretty easily, in my opinion. But I do think there's value to be found in the double-digit rounds on Rodriguez.
Very well put. I'm glad you kind of sorted that out for us. So both guys in their current situation, where they're going in drafts, do have appropriate value. I like Tutin as a third running back, as a flex guy. As your RB2, I'm a little nervous. I much more prefer the David Montgomery, boring old guys.
Oh, yeah,
as
me
my
too.
RB2s. Give me that guy all day long.
Give me Tutin all day in Dynasty.
Oh, in Dynasty, totally understand that. And I have Tutin in Dynasty, so there you go.
Yeah, right. And because we're smart guys, Joe.
Smart, handsome guys. Make sure you put the handsome in there.
All right, you said it. Last year, I asked a member of the organization, the Jaguars organization. This was in the first OTA of the offseason. I said, who's your opening day running back? All right, this is the time they had Travis Etienne. We're calling him ETN. They had Tank Bigsby. They had the rookies coming in. And not with any hesitation, Bashal Tutin is the name I got. Okay, They thought they were drafting their starting running back last year. Tank Bigsby took the first-team reps all offseason up until about a couple weeks into training camp, and Travis Etienne became because Etienne became undeniable that he was outperforming him, and Bigsby didn't like it, and they were not going to infect a brand new team with an attitude issue, and so they have a lot of high expectations for Basil Tootin, and hopefully he can fulfill them for fantasy managers. We'll see if he gets the opportunity.
I'm glad, this is a good conversation also, because I think that when Chris Rodriguez first came in, look, it wasn't a nothing contract. It was decent money. It wasn't nothing. Like sometimes when it's a nothing contract, I kind of go, all right, it's just a depth fee. But they're paying him decent money. There's some incentives in there as well. Also, there's a connection between the Liam Cohen and Chris Rodriguez from the days in Kentucky too. So familiarity is important. Trust is important for a football coach to bring in guys that he trusts, especially in those big spots. So if you're looking at these players right now, this is good. If Tootin goes, again, past that David Montgomery range of running backs, then we start to question life. And then I think that becomes a bad investment. Right now, I think it's a good one. Third running back, kind of your flex guy. Okay, cool. Bench Chris Rodriguez. Dempsey and I are on the same page with that. So amazing breakdown as always, Mike Dempsey. I appreciate all your time hanging out with us. But before I let you go,
okay,
we're also excited about training camp happening. We see the videos. We see it's taking A.J. Brown and Drake May a little time to get together. Oh, okay, it's new. We see Marvin Harrison dropping passes. Okay, well, that's not great. That's not what we want to see. We've heard some news about Tua Tagovailoa and his back, and we know Penix is going to miss time. I don't know if that's shading your opinion of Drake London. It's so early that there's a tendency where all of us just want football so much. We are jumping on every bit of news and we're overanalyzing. We're thinking too much about it. But sometimes there's some truth there. So when you dig a little deeper into what's going on or what you've seen so far in this first couple days here, we're all kind of back here and starting up NFL again. Is there a situation with another team somewhere or something you've seen or heard? I know a lot of people making a lot of jokes about CJ Stroud's look walking into camp, looking like his mom just bought him, went to Marshall's and got him ready for 7th grade in the outfit he had. Where are you at with some of this news? Has there been anything so far early on that's impacted you where it's either positive or negative or maybe both? You got one of each for us?
Yeah, well, I think it depends somewhat on history. Like, I think A.J. Brown's going to be fine, right? And maybe that's because that is the mindset I have heading into training camp. But Drake May was one of the best deep ball throwers in the league last year. I think he and A.J. will learn to flourish together. Marvin Harrison, we've seen disappointment coming from him. I've been drafting Michael Wilson over Marvin Harrison all off season. And right now the ADP is in Wilson's favor. You get him even later. The Atlanta situation.
It was yesterday's show, Dempsey. Literally yesterday's show. We talked about Michael Wilson and I said, and I quote, he's going this is where the context of that Cook conversation we had just before, there's certain points where the group think is so out on a player, they become a value. And if you're wrong, it doesn't matter. You can replace them. But I don't want to just throw away everything I saw last year either between Brissett and that wide receiver. So I'm not being aggressive on Michael Wilson, but he's going so far that he's just falling in my lap in some drafts. And I'm going to say, all right, I think he can be a contributor at the very least with the upside for a lot more. Continue on. I just thought that was interesting because you literally
I agree 100%.
Echoed what I said yesterday. And it's good when other people hear this from other people.
The Atlanta situation is a little different to me. Okay. And putting aside the Bijan Robinson hold in, I guess that's what we're doing now, where the top running backs are going to get together and try to strong arm the GMs, whatever. Okay. I don't care. Penix is coming off a significant injury. Tua, they're talking about back tightness. I don't know how significant it is, but if you're sitting there in the second round and you've got the choice between Drake London and George Pickens, okay, why wouldn't you go with Dak, who looks like a freaking, bodybuilder these days? But you know what I'm saying? Like, follow the quarterbacks, man. And, Michael Penix is great for Drake London. When's he going to get on the field? And if Tua wins a few games, he's so cheap. I mean, they might keep rolling with him. Tua likes to dump it down to the backs. That's great for Bijan. Is it going to be as good for Drake London? So every situation's different. You're right. You can't just look at one highlight and go, oh my God, I got to get this guy. Even though we all do it on occasion. Even us, Joe, we all do it, right? We all fall in love with one play. But it got to go to the history. What has this guy shown us in the past? And are we worried we're seeing it again? If it's a new phenomenon, I'm going to give him a little bit of grace this early in training camp.
Always bringing the grace here and gracing us with his opinions, his voice, and his presence. Mike Dempsey, again, go check out Football Diehards on Sirius XM with him and Bob Harris. Is it the longest running show on the Fantasy Channel?
We're in our 15th year. Jeff Mans might have us beat, but I've been on there.
Nah, I'm not gonna. I love Jeff, but I'm not gonna give it to him. You guys,
well, I don't know.
Guys.
I mean, I started with Maurice Jones-Drew doing a show 17
years
ago, and I thought to myself, man, if I could squeeze 3 years out of this would be phenomenal. MJD and I did 8 years together. Harris and I have been doing 15 years together, overlapping a lot of that time. So very fortunate. A lot of people could do what I do. I'm just happen to be in the right place at the right time. Let me just say, as you keep being self-deprecating about your follower count and your subscriber count, bro, nobody's surprised that your pod is going to blow up and your YouTube channel is going to blow up. You're great at what you do. Thanks, I'm not just blowing smoke at you. So, why wouldn't anyone follow you to whatever platform you're on?
Well, I appreciate it. I'm just trying to copy you guys, man. I'm just trying to bring great stuff at you guys to the YouTube. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to put this bald face on it. That's what I'm doing. Dempsey, I'm sure we're going to talk more in the season. I was just on with the diehards last week from Canton. I did a remotely. Love Fantastic time as always. So again, go check out all this stuff. And of course, Jaguars today, where Mike's going to break down all the games for you too, if you're in that local Jacksonville area. I love bringing on people to get the local flavor of what's going on so we can get a better idea of how to approach our fantasy drafts. And if you want more of this, subscribe to FandomNFL wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Drop your comments below. When you do, you could win yourself a Fantasy Football Black Book 2026. And if you can't wait, just go get your own over on Amazon. How do you win? Subscribe to the channel, like this video, drop your comments. That's it. That's all there is. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Mike Dempsey, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids. This has been Fandom NFL.